how do you get anything done? If you don't love what you do and you're excited about it, how can that happen? And this also applies to sales. Vendors, executive buyers can sense within 30 seconds, are you excited about what you're selling? Are you excited about trying to help me? Or are you just trying to make quota? They snip that out in 30 seconds, and guess who they want to do business with?
Welcome to the B2B Digital Marketer Podcast, a podcast helping you to end your struggle with digital marketing, helping you to pave a new and better path to target and capture your ideal customer. Each week, we teach you how insiders and experts debunk the dreary and become engines of innovation. Now, here's your host, Jim Rembach.
Okay, B2B DM gang. Hey, you can get ready for a fantastic, high energy, and potentially controversial discussion today because we have Dr. Stephen Timme on the line on the B2B Digital Marketer, who is the author of Insight-Led Selling, Adopt an Executive Mindset, Build Credibility, and Communicate with Impact. And he's going to help us learn how to speak the language of the B2B executive buyer. Dr. Stephen, thanks for welcome being on the show.
Jim, thanks for asking me, and I'm glad that all you B2B DMs took a little bit of time to listen to Jim and I. So I appreciate it.
Yeah, and before we get into this discussion, which is going to be great, I know, because we've already had a really good dialogue prepping for this, is tell them a little bit about yourself and your expertise. Yeah.
So real quick, 30 years in hopefully a few minutes. So in a previous life, I was a professor of finance at Emory University here in Atlanta, where I live. And, I taught finance there. And one of the things I decided, Jim, is when I became a professor, I loved it because teaching's in our blood in my family. I said, okay, I'm going to be a professor, but I'm not taking a vow of poverty. That's not going to happen. That's not going to work. So anyway, I was very, very fortunate to work for a number of Fortune 500 companies, usually in operations, working with them to say, here are the financial benefits. If you get 1% more yield out of your equipment, or you could take a day out of inventory and all those kind of things, and almost always brought in by the finance group. And so, Jim, I was holding this open enrollment workshop at Georgia Tech, Georgia Institute of Technology, also in Atlanta. And it was open enrollment. And it was about showing people, if you improve operations, here's what the financial benefits are. And so this guy comes up to me that worked for a software company and said, have you ever applied this to sales? And the answer was no. And we talked, and I said, wait, I had this epiphany. If this is how businesses make their decisions internally, they set their goals and they approve things or disapprove things. Why, if you're in sales and marketing, think about the account-based marketing stuff, why wouldn't you be thinking the same way? And so that's when Finlistics, which is my company, we pivoted from focusing mainly on operations, improving performance, to really the sales. And all we're doing really is helping sellers say, how do these companies make decisions? How does a CMO think? How does a CEO think? How do we talk to them, be more relevant? And then how do we do a better job of showing our financial benefits? So it's been a great journey. Had lots of fun, but that's really it. Just helping people understand better, be more relevant to their customers.
As you were talking, I started thinking about a key, a really competency that everybody needs to have at that operational level, as well as the sales and marketing level, and that's business acumen.
Exactly. Yeah. And not be, an expert, but if you want to talk to the chief operating officer, right, what's top of mind for him and her? You want to talk to marketing. For example, marketing now spends, most of our clients are in the technology space, on MarTech than corporate IT. So if you want to be relevant to me, you need to know what are the goals and strategies I'm aligned with? What are my initiatives supporting that? What does that mean? And then, what's on my scorecard? What are my operational KPIs? So, Jim, what you find nowadays, I think it's Gartner saying there's now like 10 plus major stakeholders in these, transformational deals as an example. And the example I like to give is like a lot of retailers. We want to increase revenues by providing a differentiated omni-channel experience. Think of all the people involved. Marketing's involved, merchandising involved, supply chain is involved. store operations, if they have brick and mortars involved, us finance types, we're involved. So, I mean, you need to be able to talk to all those major folks and have a working knowledge of their language. You don't have to be an operational expert, but you certainly should be able to understand what I'm trying to do, know some of my language, and what KPIs I'm most focused on.
Even as you're saying that, I start thinking about internally in an organization where, like, for example, you talk about omni-channel experience, customer experience, people at the front line, and who are actually handling those types of interactions and that customer engagement.
Right.
They oftentimes have a language problem with the executives.
Well, it's actually, it's funny. So FinListic stands for financial linguistics, right? And so what we do is work with the folks throughout, traditionally, now it's mainly sales, work with the folks up and down the ladder, like, hey, here's how you speak the language of finance, because it is the language of business. The other part of that, and some of my friends are gonna get mad at me saying this, was, okay, Mr. or Ms. CFO, that 50% of the time people have no clue what you're talking about. You're talking to debt to equity ratio and beta and market cap. So what we would also do is try to teach them, okay, I know you got an IQ of over 400. How do you dial it back and not come across as like one of my friend likes to say, a financial smarty pants? So no, it's got to go. It goes up and down. And same thing for sellers, Jim. So right, if I'm here, right, I'm talking to the chief operating officer or VP of supply chain. They got a bigger vision than if I'm selling like warehouse management systems and I'm talking to the folks in the warehouse.
That's a really good point. So just for a little bit of background, I actually double majored in finance and real estate. So for me, when you start talking about these things, I'm like, it just makes sense to me. But I mean, for a lot of folks, they're like, what? What are you talking about? What are you
talking about? Yeah.
How do we practically apply this when we start talking about, okay, maybe I have had the opportunity to earn a meeting with all of these decision makers. And, and then therefore, when I get there, how do I not foul it up? Right. So that's where the whole, how do I speak their language? Because the credibility piece, the trust, exactly. I mean, if they're going to be signing away essentially their butt on the line, you've got to hit all of those key checkpoints and markers. Otherwise, they're going to check out.
Well, and to add to that, in the book, we were very, very fortunate to interview about a dozen execs from like Coca-Cola, Procter & Gamble, AT&T. I mean, it goes on and on and on. And the one common theme these execs said were, tell me something I don't know. So not just know, what I'm trying to do is expand profit margins by improving operational efficiencies. Hey, Stephen, you talk to 10 companies in my industry, tell me, don't give away anything confidential, but what have you seen other people doing? What are the pitfalls okay, let's go to the cloud, right? Which is a great idea. What are the landmines? What's out there scaring me? So it's not only, Jim, knowing what they're trying to get done, but telling them something they don't know, which most sellers are like, Stephen, you got to be kidding me. They have huge staffs. They got McKinsey. And they all said, look, we get heads down like everyone else. We don't see the big picture sometimes. You have the opportunity to see a lot of different folks out there. In fact, Candy Conway, she's a former VP of global operations at AT&T. And she said, if you don't bring up something about the industry that I may not know, I'm going to ask you, tell me something I don't know about my industry. Not being an industry expert, but just, on that day-to-day basis, seeing the industry.
Well, even when you say that, that's why if you think about the B2B buyer, a lot of them have a lot of suspicion when it comes to what organizations are typically putting together as far as you want to call it a package is concerned to try to nurture a relationship.
Yeah.
And when it comes to, hey, the case study, I mean, it's kind of like, hey, give me 3 references. Well, am I going to give you any ones that struggled or had, are we going to get a bad one? Hell no. You're going to get my 3 glowing ones, right?
Well, and that, listen, and I'm fortunate. I get to work with a lot of buying execs and I get to work with a lot of sellers. I love it. But that's the one thing they're like, sellers always come in with smiley faces. It's a 500% return. Okay. Where's the one there was no return? Where's the one is a negative return? So for all my friends out there, to build credibility, bring it up. Hey, Jim, here's our use case. Here's our case study. for a company your size, we provide this much in financial benefits, this much ROI. But you know what? I got to be transparent. Let me tell you, I've lived the good, the bad, and the ugly. Let me tell you about the ugly one. And let me tell you what I learned from what we learned as a company, because what executives hate, it's always like, well, we told them what to do. They just didn't implement it well. Well, you know what? You're partners,
Yeah, that's a very great point. And we're going to hit on some of those. So we can actually look at, the things that people are doing, things that people, should stop doing, and how they really need to change their perspectives. And we're going to focus in on three, key areas that occurs. So the first one is you talk about a B2B seller needs to align with B2B buyers by really taking, an inside out, or not taking taking the inside out versus an outside in approach. Talk a little bit to that.
Right. So inside out is all about me, right? It's all about me. I am this company. It's all about me. And I challenge people. People say, oh, Stephen, that's not true. Really? Look at your account plans, right? How many of your account plans have got the client's goals and strategies, executive compensation? It's all about, oh, this renewal's coming up. We want to expand it. It's all about me. So that's the inside out. The outside in is me saying, hey, can you just stop solutioning for a minute and let's see what are their goals and strategies, right? Oh, look, here's these 5 different buyers that are involved in this. Well, what are some common initiatives that they have, and what are the way they're going to measure success? Right, going back to my omni-channel example. Right. I mean, marketing is going to look at things like, oh, I want to have more personalized campaigns, and I'm going to look at campaign response rate, where our friends in distribution logistics are going to look at on-time delivery. Can I get it to them the next day? All aligned with the same goals and strategies, they're just measuring success differently. So outside in is take off your solution hat. I know we're coin operated and we want to sell something. Of course we do. Take your hat off and really get inside the mind of the customer and just start something simple if you're not doing it already. If they're publicly traded, read the letter to shareholders in their annual report. And the CEO usually lays out, here's our goals, here's what we're trying to get done. We're trying to expand profit margins. So that's the outside in perspective, which unfortunately, we've done different research, and I've even, talked to different companies. And I would guesstimate that there's only about 25% of companies out there that really take the outside in perspective, despite all the lip service about customer first. So that's the bad news. The good news is it's not as hard as you think it is.
Yeah, as you were saying that, I'm like, okay, customer centricity or being customer centric from your perspective is not the same as it is for me. So I have to make sure I'm talking what their language is in regards to that. Yeah,
it's all about them. And like Dean Myers, he was a former VP of supply chain at Coca-Cola, big operations. I forget which one of the accounts that he managed, like McDonald's or something. And he said, hey, you're asking me to spend my money. You maybe back in the day, maybe you spend some money flying here, right? Or whatever it is. But, in fact, I want you to be such an advocate for me that I want your boss to chew you out for doing too much for me, which I thought was a great idea. And he said he wants a partner, but if you're not willing to partner with me, it's like, to me, it's like a relationship, right? You want it to work. So it's like, I got to get inside your head. You got to get inside mine. What are our common wants and all those kind of things. But again, and I know I'm sounding negative, but I can back it up. 25% of companies out there really do an outside in perspective, despite, like I said, all the customer first and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, just because it's on your business card, it doesn't mean anything.
Or on your website. Right?
Yeah, it's in my mission statement. What? For a customer?
Yeah.
Okay, so then the other thing is when we start talking about how these conversations and are formulated and how we may start the conversation from a selling perspective doesn't align, because really we oftentimes we get stuck into the whole features and benefits and things like that. We rely back on these case studies, and we'll talk about that a little bit more in a second. Okay. We've kind of already hit that a little bit, but really what we need to be do is focus on the problems that they need to solve, the problems to solve for. How do we go about doing that?
Yeah, so. Again, we do surveys. Being a finance type, we love numbers. So we did this one survey, Jim, and we asked the question, how well can you align your solutions with what the customer's trying to get done, their goals and strategy? About 25% said we're really good at it. 30-something% said, oh, we still promote features and functions, which is such limited interest to an executive buyer. Like, why even bother? And then the rest said, even when we know the goals and strategies, we don't know how to align our solutions. So, there's a couple ways you can do this. And one that I recommend is, first of all, start off with what are some of the more common goals in an industry. Like I just said one for retail, or if it's manufacturing, we want to improve margins by improving, productivity or operational efficiency. So the first thing to do is pick just a couple of those, right? Don't do everything. Don't make it it's a big science project. Basically, what I'm talking about is developing an industry playbook, really. And so, okay, here are the most common goals and strategies. Okay, pick a couple of those. All right, now brainstorm. And this is a team effort. This is not just sales enablement. It's just not sales leaders. It's industry experts. It's your value engineers. Okay, so let's think about, these are the most common goals and strategies. What are our traditional buyers now, right? And how do we have the use cases or the case studies that says, okay, Jim, you're trying to improve operational efficiencies. You're this manufacturer. We're selling automation. Here's how, and I'm going to focus on the how. Here's how our solutions have helped others improve operational efficiencies. And, here are the things that you got to look for. So get down your how statements. The next thing to do is really create those case studies. Where have you done this before? Because Jim, you sold. One of the first things they ask is like, where have you done this before? We have, but it's confidential. I can't tell you. Oh, come on, get out of here. So then you break it down further and say, okay, well, here's the traditional buyers, and here's how we can start talking about how we help them. And I always encourage people, because these buying groups are getting larger, like we talked about before, is say, okay, find one more buyer that you've never even talked to before. Oh, they're trying to also improve operational efficiency, but we always talk to the folks in operations, not distribution and logistics, or wherever it might be. And, leverage that relationship that you currently have to say, hey, I like to go talk to Bob over here. Here's how we think we can help them. Because then, I can make my traditional contacts look like heroes. The next part of the story is, well, how are they measuring success? So for example, the operations example I gave you, they're going to look at things like, capacity utilization or unplanned machine downtime. So really start thinking about how you impact those KPIs, how you're going to impact the KPIs of the new buyers. And then, which this is where most companies really fail, well, traditionally, what has been that improvement in unplanned machine downtime? And how much would it be worth for Jim? So it's really a process of common goals, breaking it down into, well, who are the buyers aligned with that? What are the ones we traditionally talk to? Oh, here's a new one. What are some use cases that we can use to say, okay, here's how we've helped others, breaking it down into a scorecard, or to use a fancy phrase, operational KPIs, and be able to talk to those and engaging with them, use those KPIs. That's their language. And then ultimately, how much traditionally we've been able to help others in that industry improve those, and what kind of cash would it mean to them?
As you're talking, I start thinking about, that whole execution and how do you apply it. Is that, to me, it makes sense. I visually see it, is that if I'm having an executive buying committee and I'm sitting there and I have all of these, different people that are part of it. Oh, and by the way, they're probably not in the same room anymore. Those days are over. I need to get them all focused on, a single point of direction.
Yeah.
And I think the example you gave is great. So maybe I say, these are the top 3 struggles, but then I need to say, okay, which one of these is most important for you? Or is there one, or is it none of these? Then which is it? So now you get more alignment with that organization, and you're solving their problem, or at least, getting them connected to one problem that they're all focusing their head on.
Yeah. And let me give you this an example I saw last week. So Banco Santander, right, has said there's this thing, cost to income ratio. And a lot of you don't know what that means in banking. It's real simple. It's like, their certain costs are 46% of their revenues, and they have a goal of getting it to 45%. So there's a 1% difference. So, you could very quickly say, oh, so you're looking for this many more euros, if I understand your goal right, in cost benefits, right? So, Jim, we have to do this now because, as you know, these buyers are so much further down the buying journey than they were before. So I got to hit them over the head right away. Hey, Jim, you're trying to get this done. You're trying to lower your cost income ratio. I guesstimate it's worth this much. Here's how we helped other. Oh, well, listen, you're in finance and accounting. Here's how we've helped them, or you're in sales and marketing, or you're in branch operations. So very, very quickly get to the point. What are they trying to get accomplished? How have you helped others? And then start talking about, what might be the financial benefits. And you got to do this early on. You can't, like, 3 months later finally get around to that discussion, or you're not invited back.
Well, that's a great point. Okay, so then that leads us into our third most important point, is that ditch the case studies and start thinking more about financial benefits.
Yeah, and so you have to have the case studies to earn the right to build a proposal or business case. Because I learned this from Tom Shoey when I was very fortunate to do a lot of work at Walmart. Tom Shoey was the CFO at the time. So we're two finance guys, right? We love numbers. And he said, Stephen, tell me the how, and then tell me the how much. So the case studies are kind of like the how. Here's how we've helped others. Here's how I think we can help you. And Jim, the challenge is some people just leave it at that. Here's how we've helped companies improve cross-sell, upsell 5%. And that's it. And so the customer runs off, builds their own business case. And because then they say, okay, how much is it going to cost me? Okay, it's going to be $20 million. Why would you give anyone a price before knowing what the financial benefits are? I mean, I guarantee you there's a lot of people out there, Jim, leaving money on the table because or their products are cheaper. I've had executive buyers tell me this all the time around, like, analytics. Well, since they can't really tell me what the value is, I'm not going to pay much. That customer knows exactly what the value is. You've just done a poor job of selling it. I mean, I hate to insult anyone, but I'm in finance. We often do that. So the point is, the case study, is the how. Here's how we've helped others. Gives you the right to say, hey, Jim, what I'd like to do is for you and I to work together to see how much cross-sell, upsell, or reduce customer churn it might be worth for you. I want your fingerprints on this, right? I don't want you just taking my ideas, run off, deciding what the ROI is, and give me a yes, no. And you would think that most people build case studies. They don't. They really don't. I mean, there are, some of them are really, really good, but some of them are, like, really crappy. I got to say it. I mean, they leave out risk factors. They leave out all these things. So the point is for you and I to collaborate, come up with, okay, we think the cross-sell, upsell could be improved by doing these things, and it'd be 10%. And you and I both agree, okay, maybe there's $50 million of additional revenues on the table, right? So there's just not enough of that going on. And I tell you, what's really not going on, we talk about value selling, or we call it insight-led selling, but value selling and realization. And that R part, there are just a few companies I can count on one hand that does a great job around the R part. So you and I should get together, let's say on a quarterly basis. Hey, Jim, you and I said these things were going to happen. You were going to get $50 more million in revenues. And let's break it up by the quarter. Okay, how much you get this quarter? Well, we only got 5 million. Okay, let's work on what happened, right? Did the environment change? Did we make some assumption about the technology or the adoption? So really, it's a great way to have a partnership with them, not be a vendor, but a partnership. And buyers want partners. They do not want vendors.
Well, as you were saying, especially at the executive level, you hear them talking a lot about an acronym VUCA, right? Volatile, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. Yeah. And we're hearing more and more of that. But the fact is, it's called today.
And it ain't going away.
It ain't going away. And so to think that, at the front end, of this journey that you're taking, that whatever was actually set as an expectation, and I think that's important to note, is going to be exactly what is realized is just stupid. There are so many factors like you're talking about. I mean, who knew that there would be another variant that kicked a lot of people in the what? Yeah. And here's another thing. If you think that's the last one, you're nuts.
Yeah.
Right? It's just foolish to think. So if I start looking at it from that perspective, and I start thinking about, I'm setting an expectation, and then we're living in a VUCA world that I've got to continuously be engaged with this.
Yeah. Yeah. And just like companies today, I mean, they put together these 3-year plans, and I know of CFOs are like, yeah, and that's why you just got to be on it, and not promoting analysis paralysis, but as you said, I mean, the market is so volatile. You've got all these disruptors out there. Like 10 years ago, who would have thought Tesla? I mean, look how they're literally changing the world. That's why Elon Musk got what Time Person of the Year, right? I mean, there's always that disruptor out there that's going to change it. So the point being is, we have to put some numbers on the paper, right? There's no question about it to justify it. But we also have to understand what might change. One of the things that we always ask people to do is, well, what's the break even now? Say, hey, Jim, you and I said that this is going to increase cross-sell, upsell 10%. What could be the lowest percentage increase in cross-sell, upsell that we would get our money back plus a 15% return, whatever it might be? I mean, you have to have that ongoing relationship. And, the deal's got to be big enough. It can't be, a multi-billion-dollar company and we're going to track a $200,000 investment. That's not going to happen. But we certainly would track a $10 million investment.
Well, as you say that, I'm like, well, it kind of depends on the size of the organization too.
That's true too.
If I'm dealing with a, smaller, medium-sized enterprise who has aspirations of being, having the growth, you have to, again, set the expectation that this is how this is going to work. Because then talking about, earning your way and being that collaborative partner is you're in for the ride as well.
Exactly. And it is relative. So for example, I know we had this a few years ago, and being a finance type, I'm obviously very skeptical of marketing. Like, I'm going to give you money. What do I get back? And so this company came in, they came up with this proposal. It was going to be, and Jim, they sounded good up front. They were talking about, we believe in ROI and growing revenues, and here's how we've helped others. I'm like, okay. And they put together this proposal. It was like $250,000 for the first year. And I said, what kind of return should I said, just the ROMI, right? Return on marketing investment. What kind of ROMI should I expect? Well, that's really hard to say because there's so many things that can happen. I said, like this meeting being over. Yeah, it's over. I'm not kidding. I stopped. I'm like, you know what? This is BS. So you're right. It is relative. And, there needs to be some skin in the game. And what I mean by that is continued investment of their time. Because most of the time when you do this, profit sharing type of thing, right? Once companies figure out what they have to pay the supplier, if it goes well, they're always like, okay, let's just go back to a fixed price. But then you have to help build a business case with the client, and they want to do that. They really want to. If they believe in you, they want to do that because things that they don't. You've seen in other companies. And then, lay out a plan to work on the return part of it. I mean, what they actually realized.
When you start talking about the whole expectation setting and doing, those types of models, I mean, really, it's a projection, and just making sure that you're setting that type of expectation. This is what we project given what we know now.
Right.
And then that gives you the opportunity to say, well, when we started, these were our assumptions. And this is what we realized. This is what our future assumptions are. And if you're doing that, in that collaborative state, like you're talking about, in that the relationship or arrangement, people are really fair for the most part.
I find that. In fact, Jim, I wish they would quit using the term business case, because what that sounds like is I check the box, I put it on the shelf or virtual shelf now, and I don't go back and look at it. It should be called a business plan. So as the market changes, right, and we put contingency plans in there, okay, we said that, if the economy did this, here's what our response would be. If the economy does this. So it's really should be a living, breathing document that allows us to check what do we assume, what changed. We had contingency plans in there. If it's a big bet, let's start acting on those.
Okay, so you had talked about, and we both kind of referenced this whole, buyer committee and all of these different parts of the organization that are involved with these. It may not even be a transformation project. It may be something else, but I still have many people that are part of
Right.
part of this. I would dare to say how that was approached a few years back was a certain way versus what it needs to be now. What are some of those key changes that you've seen need to be in place now?
Yeah. What you're seeing is that people are being more and more conscious of these other buyers. So I'm trying to think. Oh, I know this real life example. One of our clients does a lot of stuff around analytics and forecasting, and it was being done through the IT group is the one that approached this company because that's the ones they usually talk to, right? And so I asked the fundamental question as a retailer. I said, why are they doing this? Well, they just want to have faster forecast to do what? To be more accurate, So I said, let's go ask the buyer what, and so the IT person said, well, I got this request from merchandising. I said, come on, let's find out what they're wanting. I said, look, here's what we want to do. We want to do a better job of forecasting what people want so we have a greater sell-through rate and have lower markdowns. And so all of a sudden there's this other buyer there, right? So I think traditionally, and really I see it still a lot today, is like, okay, I understand the technical request. Do you understand why they're even doing this? So the one thing I have seen change is people are saying more and more, why are they really doing this? Oh, they want to do this to do a better job of choosing merchandise, to have a greater sell-through rate, to have lower markdowns. So what you're seeing is that they are opening the aperture to say, well, I've got to talk to these multiple buyers, as we talked about earlier, in their speak. And what they're also doing is earlier on, the better companies are talking about potential financial benefits, not making it a promise, right? But if we could do for you like we've done for others in your industry, it'd be worth this much. Now, we don't know today if we can give you any of that or all of that or more of that. So one thing I'm seeing is they're more and more talking to more buyers in their language. They are more quickly talking about the alignment of their solutions with what you're trying to get done, and then bringing that financial insights, the potential, a guess, a glimpse into the future much, much earlier on in the process. Whereas before it either wasn't brought in at all and people wonder why the customer didn't call them back or they lost the deal. So those are the big things I see things changing. And it's good for us at Finlistic because that's some of the stuff we do. So I love it.
Well, you by what you're saying, it kind of begs the question, is that, when looking at some of the studies in regards to the conversations that happen at the board level, they talk about 85 to 90% of those conversations are really associated with the acronym of, SWOT, right? It's all about weaknesses and threats, and it's negative, negative, negative. But as you're talking there, I start thinking about maybe a shift has occurred as well when we're really starting to look a little bit more in regards to some of our aspirational views and, looking at the possibilities and, the whole, innovative and differentiation and things like that. Yeah.
Right.
Am I right in that thinking?
Yeah. I mean, I get to be on both sides of the desk. And one of the things that you're seeing is you do have some industries that are still, stuck back in the 70s and that. But I mean, you pick retail as an example. I mean, are these companies going as fast as they want to? A lot of them are not. But I mean, you can't ignore Amazon as an example, right? And so what you're seeing more and more is they are bringing in, folks that know how to make change happen more quickly. They are putting people at the top that says, you know what, we've been a very successful company for 50 years, but if we don't do something, we're not going to be around for the next 5 years. So at the board level, what I'm seeing more and more is they know you have got to change or else. In fact, this is interesting. This was a number of years ago. We did this study and said, if you took the top 25% of the S&P 500 in terms of returns, their stock returns, total shareholder return, and then you move forward 5 years, okay, and say which one of those companies are still in the top 25%, only 25% of the 25%'s there. So people know that they need to change. They are changing. And that gets back to a comment I made earlier. And again, a common theme in the book is tell me something I don't know. I've been doing it this way for all these years. We've been incredibly successful. We have brought in all the consultants. We do have a big staff, but hey, Stephen, you see a bunch of companies in our industry, the good ones, the bad ones. Tell me something I don't know. What are the better ones doing? What are the bad ones doing that we should avoid that trap? Because they didn't do it because they thought it was bad. It just turned out to be bad.
As you're saying that, I start thinking about the book that most people say should be on your bookshelf if you're, in business, and that's the book by Jim Collins of Good to Great.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
If you look at those companies that were highlighted in that book, I don't think any of them are around anymore.
Well, one of my favorite ones, it's an old one too. But if you look at Andy Grove, probably one of the best business leaders either. He was, he ran Intel, and he wrote this book called Only the Paranoid Survive. I love that book because here's Intel. Oh, incredible, right? Had no peers, right? And all of a sudden was ADM comes out or whatever it is. And they're like, oh, crap, And it was him and Gordon Moore. They knew they were going to get the axe at the next board meeting. They asked the fundamental question, well, what are our replacements going to do? And they're like, well, we ought to do that. And they saved the company. So Only the Paranoid Survive. It's, I don't know, that in the 90s or something, but the principles in that book still hold true today, both for management and managing the company. Anyway, we digress.
Well, as you're talking, there's a guest who I've had on my other podcast, the Fast Leader Show, who wrote a book called Transforming Nokia, who is actually on the board for Nokia, who talks about what you're referring to. It's actually having that type of paranoia, but using it in a positive sense.
Oh, yeah.
So when you start talking about stress, and I was actually diving into this the other day, there's really two different types of stress. One is distress, and the other one is eustress. Distress is the panic fear stuff, right? It's like, oh my gosh, this is terrible. Oh, I got to cover my, what, and where the other one is like, hey, this is exciting, man. There's opportunities that exist here, and so you and really what they have found is that it comes down to choice. Oh, which one are you going to choose?
Yeah. I mean, because if, as an entrepreneur, it'd be really easy to be distressed, right? It'd be, especially for me. I was tenured at a university. I was 32 years old, could never be fired. People thought I was absolutely nuts when I left the university. Like, are you kidding me? Are you serious? So, I didn't do that to be distressed. I did it because I was excited, like still today. I mean, I'm excited. I'm excited about learning new things. I'm excited about, oh my gosh, we've landed this account, and it's not just the money. Money's important, sure, but it's so cool because we want to work with them to transform their company from selling just hardware to now solutions, those type of things. So yeah, if it's distressed, I mean, how do you, I mean, I do from time to time, sure. But I mean, how do you get anything done? If you don't love what you do and you're excited about it, how can that happen? And this also applies to sales. Vendors, I mean, executive buyers can sense within 30 seconds. Are you excited about what you're selling? Are you excited about trying to help me? Or are you just trying to make quota? They snip that out in 30 seconds, and guess who they want to do business with?
You're right. Okay, so let's wrap this up. I'm sitting here. I am responsible for, digital marketing and sales is now heavily digital right now. We talked about dispersed buying teams and things like that. So, we have to learn how to improve our competencies and skills in those areas. But I'm sitting here and I need to make a decision to move forward in order to make some changes that are positive and impact. What should I be thinking right now if I am in that position?
Well, from a sales organization, it's like, I mean, okay, now you can take this inside in perspective. How are we doing? We all know that for enterprise sellers, 60% make quota, right? I mean, some low number like that. So one is a self-assessment of where are we, where are the gaps? And, what if, what if we could go from, for example, we have all these statistics, what if we can go from an average closure rate of it's like 25 or 30% to the better performers are at 40? And I mean, a finance type, I always went, okay, so what if we could become best in class around closure rate, right? What if we could become best in class around churn, right? So what I like to do with companies is say, look, before we get into all the detail, let's talk about you, all right? Where are you? Well, here's the better performers. What if you could get there? What if you get halfway there? what would that mean to your top line, right? And if it's a lot of money, let's talk about it. If it's not a lot of money, it's probably just more of an irritant than anything else. So the first part is really, I like the financial motivation because I'm a finance type, and then really start peeling the onion back. Well, what does our customers really, really want from us? And you know what, Jim, you need to ask the customer, because I've sat in on a lot of these sessions where a bunch of value engineers get together. Here's how we deliver value to the customer. Have you asked them? And then you talk to them like, well, really the most valuable stuff you guys do is this. Oh, well, thanks for sharing. And they will. So really figure out, what alignment is there between what you're trying to do or what you're trying to sell and what they're trying to get done. As I talked about earlier, break that into the different buying units, break that into the different dashboards, put a little bit of finance behind it to really get it started. But it's really the biggest thing is taking that outside in perspective, which I said earlier, only about 25% of companies do. But it's not, is it a lot of work? It is a lot of work. Is it a team effort? Absolutely, it's a team effort. Have I seen companies reap great rewards from it? Because once you've built this out, it's pretty scalable, right? Especially if you're doing it at the industry level. So it's a journey. It's not like, we're gonna all get together for the weekend or whatever it is now, or a 4-hour Zoom meeting. But that's the process, and that's what we in the book. I mean, it's really a step-by-step process that we go through. This is, we know what's going on here. We work with sellers. My co-author, Melody Ashley, our CRO, was at IBM for like 12, 13 years. I mean, she knows how it goes. So, it's just, those are the big blocks. Like I said, what we do in the book, Insight-Led Selling, is break it into smaller step-by-step pieces for these teams to organizations to implement.
Dr. Stephen Timme, a fantastic conversation. How does the B2B DM gang get in touch with you?
All right, do it a couple of ways. One, obviously I'm on LinkedIn, Dr. Stephen Timme on LinkedIn with a PH, proper spelling, the name Stephen. And couple other things. Same thing, reach out for Finlistics on LinkedIn, because we're always putting freebies out there. Like Jim, next week, we're going to be doing a webinar on curing enterprise sellers' fear of finance. They're always free. Go to our, reach out to us at info@finlistics.com. And Jim, I'll send you this info, but info@finlistics.com, and let us know that you're listening to B2B digital marketing, and we'll send you free, complimentary, the first chapter in our book, Executive Insights. Jim, the other thing is on our website, finlistics.com, there's a page, resources, that we've got interviews with buying executives. People say, well, how do I sell to private companies? We've got webinars on, private company execs, how should you be sold to? So a lot of information out there. So info@finlistics.com. Please let us know that, you're listening to B2B digital marketing. Reach out to me on LinkedIn, follow me on LinkedIn, go to our website, go to the resource page, lots of good stuff out there. And don't forget the book, Insight-Led Selling, Adopt an Executive Mindset, Build Credibility, and Communicate with Impact.
Dr. Stephen Timme, thank you for sharing your knowledge and wisdom, and we wish you the very best.
All right, Jim, thank you so much. And B2B DMers, thank you for your time. Good luck.
Thank you for joining us. Go now to join the B2B DM gang in the B2B Marketer LinkedIn group, where you can connect with other B2B DM disruptors and get access to our B2B DM cheat sheets, checklist, and guides. While you're at it, if you found value in this show, please help by going to iTunes to rate, review, and subscribe. And share the show on all of your digital platforms. Be sure to tune in next week for our next episode. And always remember, you can automate your lead capture, but you must lure your lead.